Welcome to another episode of Just Because Live. Today, I'm honored to be joined by my friend Joel Feldman of NDD.org. Joel and I actually met through a Colorado Trial Lawyers Association. I saw an ad banner up there looking for volunteers at NDD.org, and it piqued my interest because I've got two daughters that are a little bit older than teenagers now, but they are on their phones all the time and texting, and I wanted to reach out. And I personally had the pleasure of actually meeting Joel in person and presenting with you and hearing your story. So, Joel, I really appreciate you coming on today.
Oh, Chris, I'm happy to do so. And that reminds me, we were looking for volunteers, and we were so happy that you and some other folks from the Colorado Trial Lawyers volunteered. Yep.
Excellent. Well, thank you. And the way I generally like to start shows off is by you giving your background, telling us a little bit about yourself, and then what you'll, in your case, I want you to talk about your story and the formation of NDD.org, if you could.
Oh, of course. So NDD.org stands for EndDistractedDriving.org. And I set up that organization about a year or so after my daughter Casey was killed by a distracted driver. Casey was walking across the street in a crosswalk. She was 21 years old. She was between her junior and senior year in college. And of course, like any 21-year-old, she had her entire life in front of her. She was in that crosswalk. It was a beautiful summer day, and a 58-year-old man was reaching to the side to get his GPS, and he took his eyes off the road, rolled through a stop sign, hit Casey, and said that he never saw her, and she died about 5 hours later in surgery. And I, like Chris, am a personal injury lawyer. I represent people. I have done that for close to 40 years now, who've been killed or injured in lots of car crashes. I represented people who were injured or killed by distracted driving crashes. Yet I drove distracted all the time because I thought I could handle it. I thought I was better. I thought I was different than everyone else. And just to put the record straight, I was never in a crash caused by distracted driving. And I'm thankful for that, because I could have easily killed someone else's child or spouse or friend. So that's the genesis, if you will, of the ENDD.org. And then what we alluded to at the beginning was we have speakers who are kind enough, like Chris, to volunteer their time to go into high schools across the country. And I was with Chris, and we did talks, I believe at Cherry Creek High School in Denver, right, Chris? Yeah. So I do talks, and our volunteers do talks, and our program is absolutely free for schools, high school, middle school, college. So how's that for telling people who I am and why I came to where I am?
That is perfect. And
Okay.
and I want you to talk for a minute too, because you have, one of the things you talk about is why give presentations to students. There's a powerful reason, I think, that you give, in the presentation itself, as to why actually go to the school level and start there and try to have that impact right there.
Now, I do, well, before COVID, I would do about 100 to 120 talks during the course of a year. I still practice law. I'm from Philadelphia, although I'm slowly moving to the Boulder area. But I would do about 120 talks a year, and about 70% would be to kids.
Yep.
Why do I do them to kids? Well, I mean, I look at Casey, and I see that although she wasn't a high school student, she'd gotten past that. She had her entire life in front of her. And I think that the folks that I want to affect the most are high school kids, middle school kids, and if we have time, we can talk about our new elementary school program. These are the people who have their entire lives in front of them. These are the people I want to keep safe. And I look at their faces, and it reminds me of Casey. It reminds me of unlimited potential. It reminds me that it can be taken away for all of us. It can be taken away from us in just a few seconds.
Yeah. And it's, when I've seen you give the presentation, and then whenever I've given them as well, one of the things that we talk about is us as adults. I just turned 45 about a month ago. I'm not going to, my habits are, it's kind of like the old dogs, and they're, I'm not learning a lot of new tricks, and it's, and I'm calling myself old Joel, but it's one of those things where, children at least and teenagers and new drivers have the ability and opportunity to actually make an impact change, not only to, themselves as drivers, but also to their siblings too.
Yeah, so I agree with that, but I will say that I've been remarkably successful, remarkably fortunate for being able to talk to folks of all ages and at businesses, at virtually every type of business you can imagine. Even though they're old dogs, so to speak, they do change their ways as well. But kids, I'll give you an example of why I prefer speaking with kids. So I grew up in upstate. Well, I'll tell you the story and then it'll become apparent. We were going to be taking the kids on the first big ski trip, and Casey was 7, her little brother, my son Brett was 5. We were at a ski store and we're getting them helmets. So we fitted the kids for helmets. We're about to check out, and Casey looks at me. She says, "Daddy, where's your helmet?" And this is what I said, basically. I said, I raced, I was a ski racer on my high school team. I went to the University of Vermont, did competitive skiing. I took off a couple years between college and law school, and I was in Colorado and Utah skiing. And she just kind of looked at me. She didn't say it, but I know she was thinking, "Daddy, that doesn't make any sense."
Right.
And I got my helmet. Just what you say. As we get older, we get fixed in our ways. Kids are wonderful. Kids are wonderful. They're open. They're flexible. I had a kid tell me, oh gosh, maybe in the fall, we're talking about this. He said, I love my mom and dad, and they're really bright. They have a lot of experience, but sometimes I think that their experience gets in the way or is an excuse to them being open to new ideas.
Interesting.
I was pretty impressed with that 17-year-old kid seeing that, and it certainly is true for me. Absolutely. So that's why kids are so important.
Absolutely. Can you talk for a little bit too, after doing so many, hundreds of presentations in schools, can you talk about do you have any moments that come to your mind of impact where, like you were saying, where children have come up to you, talked to you, parents have come up to you and talked to you? Can you give a couple examples?
The genesis, if you will, for our elementary school program came from a talk I did at a school. It was a private school in Maryland, and they required that one parent come to at least one evening presentation with their child. So we had a good mix of people. So I'm doing the talk, and you probably have parents who are listening to this right now, and maybe they can do this with me. Moms and dads, raise your hands. So we have everybody who's a mom or dad raising their hand. Chris, you could raise your hand too. Okay, thank you. Keep your hand up.
Okay.
Keep your hand up if you would do anything to keep your children safe. Of course, you keep your hand up. Right. Now, only keep your hand up if you haven't driven distracted with your kids in the car. I did that there at that school, and I had some moms who were in tears coming up to me afterwards, saying, my job as a mom is to keep my kids safe. And I never realized I was taking chances with my kids. And I also explained to them that if a mom or dad drives distracted, their child is almost 3 times as likely to also drive distracted. So it's the present danger, but it's also being a poor role model. And I was that poor role model.
Right.
I was that poor role model for my kids all the time. And, who's ever listening, I get it. I was never in a crash. And I knew statistics about distracted driving. As a lawyer, I knew this stuff. I had to present it in court. And that never would have gotten me to change the way I drive, but my daughter's death did. And if we have time, we can talk a little bit more about some good reasons to give up your driving distracted. But it's that moment was a big moment. And I've been so fortunate. I've had kids come up to me after presentations and say, I've driven distracted and I won't. I also have parents, when I do a school talk, I get an email from a parent who wasn't at the talk and said, and some of them are sort of kidding. They say, well, thanks a lot. I can't drive distracted anymore because of your talk. So you really screwed something up for me. But then they say, we appreciate it. We're thankful of it. So like a lot of folks, I'm at a loss, now. I would be in schools, I'd be in conferences, I'd talk to people. I have done some Zoom talks, some talks like this, but it's a period of adjustment for all of us, and I'm hoping that there's some positive that at least comes out of the way our lives have been disrupted. But there's been a big disruption for me and what we do as an organization, and we're trying to do some things, and we're going to be doing some new PSAs that'll be coming out, I guess, over the next 6 weeks. One of them actually draws a parallel to people, wearing masks during COVID. I mean, we wear a mask not so much to protect ourselves, but to protect others. It's a sign of respect, that sort of thing. Kind of like distracted driving. Even if you haven't been in a crash, maybe you give up that distraction just because it's respectful to do that to keep others safe. Right. Even if you think you can handle it and you won't be in a crash. So it's a time, I think, for not just me, but everyone, of self-reflection, and hopefully we're going to come out of this and be better, stronger people.
Absolutely. Joel, you had mentioned the elementary school program. Can you talk a little bit about that and what you guys have coming out?
All right. So I have a partner with that, a woman, her name is Emily Stein. She's from an organization in Boston, Safe Roads Alliance. Her dad was killed by a distracted driver. And Chris, you might remember the video in the presentation. We have the 17-year-old who killed him, and then the daughter of the man.
Yes, yes.
She was 6 months pregnant when her dad was killed. So that's Emily. She lost her dad. I lost my daughter, and we've really gotten close. And she's one of my favorite people in the world now. So she has some little kids. She's got a 9-year-old or 10-year-old now. And she has a 6-year-old. And she said, firemen come into classes and they teach the kids about fire safety. We teach the kids how to cross the street as pedestrians. Let's teach them about distracted driving. So what we did is she had some ideas, I had some ideas, and I'm not particularly shy about thinking when I know something to go ahead with it. But I said, this might be a little different. I have a lot of experience talking to college students and high school's kids and middle school, but not that much elementary. It's been a while since my kids were that age. So we went out and we found elementary school content developers. We talked to them about it, and they said they'd love to help us write lesson plans, which is what these are. Right. A 2nd to 3rd grade, a 4th to 5th grade, and as a bonus, we have a 6th grade. I know that's not necessarily elementary school, but 6th grade lesson plan. They're all different. They're all age and developmentally appropriate. And they said we need to get a child psychologist. We need to get a social emotional learning, SEL expert, a lot of behavioral things with kids and cross-curricular activities. And we need to hire some folks, because they told me, and we actually focused this with about 200 teachers across the country, and almost all of them said you have to have animation in it. Kids like animation. So they found us an animator, video person who has a lot of experience. They've done some stuff for Sesame Street and all. Wow. So it was about a year project, and we basically came up with a animated character, Sam, who's a meerkat. His initials stand for the steps that we teach kids, and you'll probably recognize it. It's the same as the high school talks. See a problem, S. Address a problem using an I statement, and make an action plan together. So it'd be, if Chris, you're driving me, I could say to you, gosh, I see it. And we teach the kids what it means to be distracted as a driver. Dad, I see you're looking at your phone, and I'm a little nervous when you do that. And most parents, if they hear that their child is nervous because of something they did, it hits them kind of, I love you, but I don't feel safe because you're looking at your phone while you drive me. And so you generally don't even get to the 3rd step, make an action plan together, but it could be. And one of those steps might be, hey, Dad, let me text for you, or let's pull over to the side of the road, that sort of thing. So that's kind of it. We have 3 videos. It's complete lesson plans. And I don't know if you have teachers who are watching this, or Chris, I'm going to send you the links after we're done.
Absolutely.
It's free to download. We actually had some teachers do a presentation. So if the teachers don't want to do it themselves, or even parents at home, we have I think it's about a 38-minute run through where you see the 3 videos, you go through questions, and you have the 2 teachers doing it. But the teachers, if they want to do it themselves, are free to do so. We encourage that. And since teachers developed it, we have, and stuff that I didn't know anything about, a facilitator's guide to help with things, questions, suggested questions. The videos are embedded and they're easy to run. We have some math exercises to go along with some science exercises, some music and history exercises, and one actually is writing a persuasive letter, maybe to county council or someone about, getting advertising or maybe even laws changed. So we were to have launched it April 1st, so we have a little hiccup in that, but we've had 3 or 4 groups do it now. We've gotten good feedback, and actually the U.S. Department of Transportation found out about it, and in their fancy terms as traffic safety professionals, they say this is a child-to-parent distracted driving intervention.
Wow.
Kids see mom and dad, they get mom and dad to put the phone down, and it's the first of its kind in the country. So they assigned us some researchers, and they've started, but we don't have enough schools who've done it yet.
Right.
Looking at data with a pre and post presentation survey and interviewing kids and parents to see how behaviors have changed, so we can see if it's effective. And it is free. It's on our website, and it's really cool. And with some other lawyers like you, when they hear that, say, "Oh, I'd love to go into the school and give it." You can, but it's primarily designed for the teachers to give themselves.
Yep.
Nothing says that you can't give it. Any other questions about that, or?
No, I think actually, well, the one thing for me is as a former, so I used to be a 4th grade teacher, and for somebody that used to actually have to make my own lesson plans, I can tell you like how something like this would just be invaluable to have, a lesson plan actually just handed to you on here's how we do this. So I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, and we actually have, the teachers told us we should offer to the first 30 teachers who successfully can get the kids to do pre and post presentation surveys and mom and dad to do that. I think it's $100 gift cards. They said teachers will appreciate that.
Very, very much.
Yeah. So that, if you think about it, the kids will be asked, have you ever spoken up in the pre-survey before they see the lesson plan?
Mm-hmm.
Ever spoken up in the car when you see mom and dad on their phone? Do you think like you could do that? Do you think you know the words to do that? And then in the post-survey, we'll ask them, over the last couple of weeks, have you spoken up? What was the effect? Been able to get mom and dad to put their phone down. And for moms and dads, we'll just ask them about their distracted driving behaviors before the kid gets the lesson plan. And then also about 2 to 3 weeks later, we go back to them and ask them to see if their driving habits have changed. And it's totally anonymous, that sort of thing. Everybody's protected for that. And the Department of Transportation made sure that it had to be anonymous, and it is. And it's been interesting working with researchers who are into like framing the questions and seeing what happens. I will say one funny thing is their original survey for the kids, I think, was 38 questions and 5 parts to each question. Of course, the teacher said, it's not going to work.
No.
For the little kids, the 2nd and 3rd grade kids, the teachers actually give them the survey and the kids answer it, but the teacher guides them through it.
Oh, okay.
What we were told was necessary.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then one of the teachers who has worked with us this whole time is someone who is a family friend. She knew Casey. She's a couple of years older than Casey, lives in the neighborhood, but is a Philadelphia school teacher. And she's always wanted to write a kid's book. So she wrote a book, and the name of the book is Sam's Distracted Day. So it's the same meerkat that's in the videos, and it teaches kids what it means to be distracted, how we could distract ourselves, how other people could distract us, how we could get into trouble with distractions, multitasking. And at the end, there is a scene where after Sam's mom has taught him, it's not good to, what's one of the lines? 2 things at once, and you can't be alert. 2 things at once, Sam, you can get hurt. That kind of thing, kind of like a Dr. Seuss kind of thing.
Right.
And so at the end, when he's in the car, Sam with his mom, and sees mom driving, it's Sam's turn to speak up and use an I statement and get mom to put the phone down. So that's that book. We have it up on the site, and we actually had it narrated by some folks with a little bit of theater experience. It's not like Morgan Freeman or Meryl Streep, but the narrator actually is a very, very good voice, and he's actually was Casey's boyfriend, and the mom is my son's, who lives in Boulder, his girlfriend, and Sam is a 12-year-old girl actually who's into local theater here and is the daughter of a lawyer I've known for years.
Wow.
So we're excited about that. And we're working on book 2, which is going to be pretty much all about distracted driving. And that probably will come out in the, I'd say the early fall.
Okay. And you said then that Sam's Distracted Day is actually available right now, and you can find it on the website?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Good. And so you mentioned the website a couple times. Can you talk about some of the resources that are available on the website?
Sure. It's nddd.org, nddistracteddriving.org. And we have a site where if you want to get facts and statistics about distracted driving, generally, teen distracted driving, parent distracted driving laws, things like that, you have that there. We have resources where you can go to different organizations that'll help you as a parent have a conversation with your child about distracted driving. We have the resources there where I'm not sure how you signed up, Chris. It may have been through Colorado Trial Lawyers, but anybody who wants to give the talk, of course, give the talk now would have to be virtually. But give the talk, you can go onto the site and you could become a speaker. And if you become a speaker, there's a link to the presentation. We have a presentation for Mac. We have a presentation for PC, and the videos are tweaked so that they'll run on the appropriate platform without too much difficulty. The presentations, we have slides, and there's notes to the slide, and there's talking points to get anyone through it. There's also a couple of training videos I have on there giving presentations to help people. We now have, as we talked about, the elementary school things. What else do we have on there? Oh, our presentations. We have a lot of videos in them, and a lot of people said, oh, I'd like to show that video to my mom or dad. So you can actually look at the presentation videos separate and apart from the website. We have some feedback from folks who've seen the presentation. I don't know, it's probably, I'm leaving out something, but that's pretty much the gist of it.
No, thank you. And then you mentioned earlier too, some tips that you might have too for kind of, what are some tips that you have for stopping distracted driving? So I've got my law partner, he has his daughter's been driving for about a year, and his son is just getting, I think he either just got his permit, so we have some new drivers in this house. What advice would you give to parents out there who have like some teenage drivers on some tips that they could have to kind of make sure their kids aren't driving distracted whenever they're out there?
So Casey's favorite color was pink. So as you know, we have pink wristbands.
Mm-hmm.
In doing these talks, I've met other parents who've lost their children. I'm just going to show you some of these, and there's a point here. I don't know if you can see the pink one here. That's Casey's. These are others. These are the young ladies, and I don't have them all on my wrist because it's kind of hot in the summer. And these are the guys over here. One mom whose daughter was texting gave me the wristband after a presentation, broke my heart, what she said. And she said, she told me her daughter was texting when she died. And she asked me this question after she gave me the wristband and asked if I would wear it. And I, of course, wear it. She said, do you think my daughter was texting at the time she died because she saw me do it all the time?
Huh. Yeah.
To have to live with something like that. So what I tell parents, because I'll do talks for PTA in the evening and other things, and even in businesses, it's always the moms. I love moms. I love the moms. They run up to me, oh, Mr. Feldman, what's the single most important thing I can do what can I say to my kid to keep him safe from distracted driving? And I say, well, you could sit here through the presentation, but you know what? I'm going to give you it. I'm going to give it to you right now. Okay. Be the driver you want your kid to be. And they look at me. Have you driven distracted with your kid in the car? And they're honest. I said, yeah. Be the driver you want your kid to be. If you have driven distracted with your kid in the car, say that you went to this presentation. say that you realize it was a mistake to have driven distracted, and enlist the help of your kid, even as young as 5 or 6 years old, as long as they're facing forward and they can see what you're doing, and tell them, I was wrong to do that. I need your help. You remind mommy or daddy if you see me picking up the phone, or if you see me looking and I'm not looking at the road, remind me. So that way you enlist their help. And, you know, the whole idea behind the elementary school presentation and this is we want to create a generation of kids who will look at distracted driving just the way we look at drunk driving. Totally 100% unacceptable. And our kids need our help. And, you know, you take those little kids and they become drivers and, you know, they're inexperienced. The studies that I've seen say it takes about 2.5 to 3 years of driving for our kids to become proficient enough so their crash risk is reduced to about the level that their parents is. So really inexperienced. That's why distracted driving is so terrible for teens. I mean, it's 3 times the rate of distracted driving crashes for teens as any other age group. And that's largely due to inexperience. So that's one tip. You had asked me about, you know, I don't know if you'd asked me specifically for kids, but obviously I'm so focused on kids. Almost every school I've gone into, certainly Cherry Creek, Smoky Hill, Boulder High School, Monarch High School, Lafayette. I'm probably forgetting some. Oh, Salida, way out there. I did one out there. I'm probably forgetting some. There's a couple other in Boulder, and then the St. Vrain School District. I've done Minot, or is it Minot or Niwot? Niwot, Erie, Meade, Silver Creek, a whole bunch of them. Just about every school has a banner. Respect is our core value. What does it mean to respect others? You ask people that, and maybe some of your audience now, just take a moment, audience, and just think, what does it mean to respect others?
Right.
Most people tell me it means, hey, treat them the way you want to be treated. There's nobody who likes to see anybody else on the road driving by, texting, and not looking at the road. So we know how we want to be treated. But for all of you who think that you're respectful of others, and probably are, probably you're quiet, you know, in a church or synagogue, you know, in a museum, you give somebody directions if they ask you on the street. You know, you hold a door open for people. You help a little old lady cross the street. You know, you respect, your care, and consider it. We need to bring that into the car, because the way I look at it and the way teens and adults all across the country have affirmed for me, there's nothing the least bit respectful about driving down a road with a passenger, sharing the road with pedestrians and other drivers, and taking your eyes off the road to look at your phone. So if you are that respectful person and want to be that respectful person, maybe your behaviors aren't consistent with that. And you know, what psychologists say is maybe I've induced a little bit of cognitive dissonance. Maybe you're just a little uncomfortable. Maybe you feel like, yeah, maybe you're.
And I think comfortable is okay. And you know, Joel, it's interesting. Like when we talk about distracted driving, obviously we talk a lot about texting and driving. But even for myself, I think I've told you this, is my wife and we were sitting at a stoplight on corner of Fillmore and Nevada here in Colorado Springs. We were the first car. There was a Mini Cooper behind us. And then behind that was a Ford F-150 hauling a trailer. Well, then we're at the red light, and then the green light with a green turn arrow comes out, but not the straight light that we were waiting in. But the guy in the F-150 had bent down to grab his cigarette lighter. So whenever he told me this after we got out of the car, he's like, I looked down for 2 seconds, I got back up, and I saw green. And what does green mean? Green means go. So I went, and then the Mini Cooper smashed into us. And, you know, we were in an accident that, you know, that wasn't necessary because somebody wasn't paying attention. And so there's other avenues other ways of distracted driving out there too, besides even just using your phone. I saw a friend of mine who's in a group that I'm on actually post one of the statistics from NDD.org today on his Facebook page, on his firm's Facebook page, kind of showing the chart graph that's on there about, using your phone, and then other things that the areas of distracted driving as well, which I thought was very eye-opening.
Yeah, for kids, it's the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, kids, when I say kids, probably up to age 35, the phone, or 39, the phone is the most frequent cause of a distracted crash. But for other folks, reaching is incredibly dangerous. The studies that they've done show you increase your crash risk by about 9 times for reaching for objects. Spiders, bees in the car, flies, you drop your phone, you reach for it. Oh, you have that Cliff Bar and it's kind of, a little bit in the glove compartment. There's not a lot of traffic. You're reaching over, take your eyes off the road. So when you take your eyes off the road, I'm pretty sure this is in the presentation you did. If not, it's in the present one. Your crash risk first doubles when you take your eyes off the road for 2 seconds. So reaching, oftentimes you drift because you reach over to the side, and then you also crash risk doubles as a result. So there are those things: eating in the car, grooming. I had a case where at a deposition, a man said that he was going by a 7-Eleven, a convenience store. It was a 1-lane road for him in one direction, 1 lane the other way with a double yellow line. And he said, I saw a really hot girl in tight shorts. And I just had my hands on the steering wheel, and I turned to watch her. And as I turned to watch her, my car went over the double yellow line and hit my client's car and killed their 4-year-old son.
Wow.
So there's so many different things. There's so many tragedies from distracted driving, and so many types, as you rightly point out, so many types of distracted driving.
Absolutely. Well, Joel, we're at about 30 minutes right now, and I want to honor your time and thank you for coming on today to share your story and talk to us. And then what I'd like to do is just kind of is have you let people know how they can contact you, how they can help support NDD.org. You talked about volunteering, but if there's any other avenues. And then lastly, I'll give you what I generally end with is the last word. So just any thoughts that you have, for right now, for this time, and then you get the last word, Joel. So thanks for coming on today.
Well, thanks so much, Chris. I appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you when I'm back in Colorado, and we can go in and we can do some more schools. And actually, I've done a number of schools down in Colorado Springs, and I was thrilled when you came on board, because that's just one less place I have to travel. Now I've got you in Colorado Springs, and I guess it's probably your teaching background, but you really, really connected well with the kids, and we got great feedback from the schools that we did together and the ones that you've done without me. Yeah. So if you want to get a hold of me, it's info@ndd.org. I'm pretty simple to get a hold of. I guess I'll just leave everyone with this thought. I was never in a crash, and I only gave up driving distracted because my daughter was killed. So there are plenty of you out there thinking, well, I'm a good driver, I'm a safe driver. I want you to really think about that, whether it's because you're a parent and you want to be a good role model for your child, whether maybe the talk that I gave you about respect has you thinking that you want to be that respectful person even when you get behind the wheel of a car. And most of us are more worried, actually, the stats show, about distracted drivers than drunk drivers. So think about it. If you're worried about a distracted driver causing a crash, killing you or injuring you or a family member, don't you really have to be paying attention more than ever? And so we have to be defensive drivers more today than ever. And you really can't be a defensive driver if you're not looking at the road, because you need to scan and predict and do all those things. So there's some really, really good reasons to give up your driving distractions. And today, I feel good when I arrive someplace knowing I've done everything I can to keep everybody else safe. I feel good knowing I'm that respectful person. My views of myself as a respectful person, I'm now that respectful person even when I get behind the wheel of a car. And I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic that we can save lives. And that's something that we all have to work on together. So thank you also very, very much, and just be safe.
Excellent. Thank you. And close with that. Joel, thank you so much for coming on, and thanks for your message.
Thanks again, Chris.
Yep.
Take care.